Hawk, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
My
this time
pleasure.
in front of a camera.
This time in front of a camera? Well, we had cameras last time.
Oh,
but it was in the studio.
That's right.
That's okay. Well, radio's not radio anymore.
Yeah,
as you know, it's all video and podcasts, and you're doing podcasts now too.
I have to actually do some podcasts.
It's been a while.
Yes.
It's been a couple of months. But I guess the record's almost out there, so you've previewed all the songs.
Yeah, but you know, I was doing it because I always wanted to be a DJ. I like the idea of having a radio station. But I haven't had the time yet. I have a little studio in Toronto where I kind of do it from, and since I haven't been there in a couple of months, I haven't made any new ones. I thought I'd do it on the tour bus, but I'm not.
No.
No, you always have these big ideas on the road.
And then they just never pan out.
It's funny, I just read actually somewhere that Mick Jagger kind of laughing that every time to this day that the Stones go out on the road, Keith always says, we're gonna have all this time, and during sound checks, we'll do writing, and we'll get a new record prepared, and they never do. And it's the same. You always have these big ideas like, oh, we're gonna have all this time, but for some reason, even though you're doing nothing, you can't do something. It's very weird.
You mentioned the Stones. It got me thinking, I've never asked you, what records did you grow up with as a kid? Do you remember those first records?
Oh yeah, my dad was a fanatic for music, so we always had music on in the house. And he liked piano pop, like Elton John and Billy Joel, and then we listened to almost a steady diet of Motown music.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, like Stevie Wonder was constant, Aretha Franklin was constant, and it was just all about music. My dad, he was kind of genreless, like he didn't like doo-wop, that was one thing he didn't like 50s doo-wop music, but if it was a great song, he'd buy the record. And so I sort of grew up thinking music was somewhat genreless, and then when you get in this business, you realize that to make it, you have to pigeonhole in order to get rich, and it just doesn't jive with my...
You're not really pigeonholing yourself right now,
No, I'm not very good at it.
No, well, you never have been, actually.
No, I never was good at it. I don't imagine I ever will be good at it. And two, because I started out as a drummer, and I always approached music from the drums, you know? So it's like, it'd be cool to play a reggae feel, or it'd be cool to do this, or it'd be cool to do that. I'm not very good at keeping it on the same lane.
Do you still listen to music the way you used to? Do you still love listening?
Yeah,
or
I
because
do.
you write now, it's different for you?
No, I still love listening. I still buy a lot of records. And right now, well, the Phoenix record that came out last year is still blowing my mind. Jay-Z always blows my mind, and I like that new XX or Double X, whatever
they're called.
It's pretty cool. Tons of Canadian stuff too still love Chad Van Galen and some of the stuff that for some reason isn't being heard. Colleen Brown, somebody here from Alberta. You know her from Edmonton?
I don't, but I'll check her out for sure, and everyone should too.
Yeah, a couple of guys from Ottawa, Matt Schichter and Andrew Vincent.
Any of these people you're going to be working with? Are you producing? Do you have anything on the go?
Yeah, I just finished Justin Rutledge's new record, and I'm going to do Jeremy Fisher's record in May.
Nice.
Before we go to Europe, and that's going to be really a fun record.
Do you have ideas already brewing for it?
Yeah. I always kind of taste the texture of it. I know what it's going to sort of sound like.
Speaking of sounds and stuff, the new, well, Meat at least, sounds a little like Manlicious, just the dirtiness of it. Is that where you are now sonically?
I think Meat has more commitment than Manlicious did. I think with Manlicious it was such a runaround with the label, and it kind of got watered down. It took years for it to come out. It was sort of only half of what it was supposed to be. And I think Meat in many ways is just sort of more to the point. It's a truer sort of representation. Yeah.
Representation of what?
Of just wanting to kind of have that dirty, like a real punctuated dirtiness to the texture and a real irreverence, you know? Like there's a lot of fuzz on that album. When I hear it on the radio sometimes I think, well, I don't know if it sounds good or not. It sure stands out, you know? Like it's a better like record to listen to at home, you know? It's a fuzzy, gooey, dirty record. Manlicious, yeah, I don't know. I look back at that record, maybe it's because it was at the tail end of my relationship with Universal, and it was such a hellish time, and I was being treated like such a third-class citizen that I thought, like that record kind of has a whole lot of added baggage to it.
Everything, you're right, fuzz, and that, like I heard drums were going through amps and stuff like that, except for Sarah Jane, a song that opens the record, which is completely different than anything else on it.
Yeah, that song was recorded. When I'm writing, I don't notate stuff, and I don't have the memory to keep it in there. So I usually have to record it straight away as soon as it's written. So I wrote that song backstage in London in a church that doubles as a live venue called Union Chapel. And Sarah Jane Morris, who was going to come visit and sing with me, I didn't know what we'd sing, so I just wrote a song that afternoon for us to sing that night. I recorded it on my little handheld device, and that's the recording on the record.
With all the noise, what are the noises? What's going on there?
It's like the same kind of thing here, like
People walking
gear being rolled into the venue and set up, and it's the sound of it's the sound of a PA system being built.
Most people would say, I'll take that and I'll re-record it in the studio and do it. Well, I wouldn't expect you to, but...
Yeah, I think it's that what you hear is the song being played for the first time. And I thought that was pretty neat. And I knew I would never nail it like that. Like, it would never have that sort of charm. And so, yeah, I had to commit to it. I thought that was a better way to go.
It also seems like a little jab at Universal, because they probably wouldn't happen.
You know what? I have to admit, Universal was very good to me. And, you know, my lack of success with them in terms of our relationship, I take, you know, some of the responsibility. They signed me because Universal was owned, or maybe still is owned, by Vivendi, which is a French company. And the head of that company saw me in France becoming a bit of a cult star. And Universal had passed on me many times in the past. They didn't really want to have anything to do with me to begin with. But when the mandate came in from France, it was like, sign that guy, he's a star. All of a sudden I had a record deal, and then I had a label who was excited because I was like, okay, we get to work with a real musician with a real vision, and this is exciting. It's a nice departure from sort of prefab music. But I think it was always a bit of a difficult sell for them. And I think too, after Lover Fighter didn't sort of blow up into this huge record that everybody thought it was, all of a sudden it was fun to have me on the roster. I made a nice mantelpiece, but I wasn't particularly marketable. And so,
do you want to be, though?
Well, I always thought I'd be a huge star because I thought I'm so good at my job. Like it seems like a no-brainer. But
a little cocky.
What's that?
A little cocky.
No, it's not cocky. I'm horrible at so many other things.
Okay,
like I've spent my entire life at this. You know, like just like a home builder or anybody who does anything well. If you've dedicated your whole life to it, you better be good, or you better be somewhere else. So for me, this one thing I'm very good at. And when I made For Him and the Girls, I was still a fan of radio, and I still thought, oh, radio's getting really crappy. I didn't buy into the 90s. I didn't think it was that grunge saved the world. I thought grunge sort of was like punk. It kind of dumbed down music for me, and it wasn't where I was at.
You're not a fan of the drop D power chords?
No. I mean, there were great things that happened in the 90s, but the sort of that pervasive sense that, thank God grunge came and killed off the hair bands. There was so much great audacity and great songwriting in the 80s that sort of people forgot. Like, people don't write songs like Take On Me or Karma Communion, anymore. Like,
which still get huge pops when you play them live. Like, people love those songs.
Yeah, it's true. But I think that there's just maybe a little less daringness now. But anyways, of course I wanted to be, I wanted to use that opportunity with Universal to make a real impact, and I did make an impact. It wasn't as big as sort of everybody was telling me it was going to be. And I didn't get into music to be obscure. I got into music to always do it right, to do it well, and to try and make music that was always a cut above. And when I made For Him and the Girls, I thought, okay, I'll make a record that is better than the music on the radio, and then it'll go on the radio, and people like me who like the radio will like the radio again. But I didn't realize I was making something that people say, oh, he's a weirdo, and he's such an esoteric weirdo, oh my God, he's such a weirdo. And I thought, well, they're just pop songs, with melodies and a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus and a bridge and a chorus every time. It's not like I'm making, 25-minute opuses with drum solos, just pop music. But for some reason, that's a weird thing that guy does. But I never thought it was all that weird.